All right, I guess we can do intros.
My favorite stat, though, real fast, is from Ron Burgundy that 60% of the time it works every time.
I don't even know who you're looking at over there. Are you looking at Dylan? Oh, okay. I'm like, are you just...
Every time.
I thought you were just thinking of Ron Burgundy. I'm I
don't even know if Ron Burgundy said it, but I know it came from Anchorman. 60% of the time it works every time.
That's funny. No, I do. Yes. I haven't seen that movie because I'm a Christian, but.
Correct. I've seen them both. Because I
don't know
them.
if I've legitimately seen the second one, but anyhow. All right, let's give a little intro here. You are Pastor Josh Hersey, obviously with Church on the Rock. That's where people are watching this. They know that, without a doubt. I am who people think
Pastor Trevor Hersey.
That they think I'm your doppelganger around town. I was just telling somebody.
And vice versa. By the way, it happens in both directions.
I just told someone. They were like, we were talking about this, and I said, there's not a week that I'm not in town. And someone's like, man, really love your church. And I'm like, do you? Like, is there a new church where it started? I'm like, you've been there? Like, yeah, man, we came like 10 years ago. I was like, no, you didn't.
That's funny. That can't be happening every week.
Josh,
There's
I
no
swear on the Lord's birthday, I can't, and especially, I don't know what it is. If I'm in Home Depot, it's the most like, I should just get a shirt. I am not Josh.
That's funny, man.
Just on the back and the front. But one of the things that we have talked about for years, I've heard you through lunches or whatever, and then especially, this past year, you want to start to have harder conversations in this kind of way, difficult things that maybe you can't deal with on a Sunday morning.
Right.
You've only got, you're preaching about 45 minutes, 49 minutes or whatever. You can't deal with everything. So you want to have these a little bit harder conversations. And I think with the holidays here, this is the perfect time to talk about some of these things. I think all of us, in one way or the other, we got 13 different things to go over, whatever. I did that for Marino, for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's a nice gesture.
So
I almost wore my Dolphin shirt.
I almost wore my Bills shirt.
We should plan that sometime.
Let's do Super Bowl time.
Maybe like Bills Dolphins weekend. We
just win every time.
That's true. That's a good point. It would be unfair.
All right. One of the biggest things we know is that people deal with loneliness and isolation. And I wrote it down like this. A lot of people feel lonely during the holidays. And I did find another stat for you. 1 in 3 people say they feel a way of loneliness during the holidays. And then 1 in 5 will eat their Christmas dinner or whatever alone, which is pretty, like, I don't know. I've got a big family always around, got kids, same with you. Yep. But at the same time, how do you encourage these people that do feel lonely? Like, is there a right answer? I don't even.
Yeah, man. I think that one of the mistakes we make, especially as pastors, is trying to like blanket statement a bunch of stuff. Like, oh, this is just kind of the answer for everybody, when really, and I think that's kind of, and I'm sure the purpose of the conversations that we're having are, I'm sure you experience it, that 45 minutes on a Sunday. I don't know if I'm getting to the answer, I guess, but I'm sure you experience this too, that oftentimes I'm like, what do I have to cut to make this fit a realistic, it's like, I would love to just preach for 2 hours, but we have kids ministry and they would love that I didn't, or whatever it is.
Or people have bladders and they've got
that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. Me, when I drink Celsius, it moves quickly, but like, so oftentimes there's so much more that you could tunnel down into, and do you have the time, and where is the platform in the space or whatever? And so in an atmosphere like this, I feel like we can really slow down and just think and talk outside of these like blanket, this is the answer for everybody, because there could be a lot of reasons why people are having meals alone. Maybe you moved to the new city because of work transfer, and it isn't that you don't have family. Maybe it isn't that, you're alone or that you've lost someone. You're just in a new place. And it's like, well, I'm new to the city, so I don't have maybe you haven't found your community there yet or whatever. And that could be reason, and that's going to affect you.
Right.
Even if it's good, like let's just assume for a second, I got promoted and brought to, said city, and I'm excited about the new opportunity. But the reality oftentimes is those opportunities come with some adjustment and some pain and some difficulty. And that could be a factor. Loss could be a factor, not loving the family you have. There's tons of family tensions this time of year that could be painful and difficult. I mean, we're Herseys. We're seen
perfect.
We're great examples of, we say that jokingly, but it's also very quite true.
Yeah.
Some of the the drama that we've experienced in our own family.
We talk a ton.
Yeah.
But last time I've seen you on a Christmas, I don't even, when I was a kid. Yeah. I've got video of it somewhere.
The best Christmases were when y'all hosted.
Oh man.
Those were the best.
See, I'm going to dig some of that up and we're going to clip it in right here.
Yeah. Hey, Josh. I got you on videotape when y'all were in the thing at school. You just wait. I'm sitting there videotaping you. At the school, the Christmas thing y'all did at school.
Oh man.
Those were the best, man.
Yeah.
Your like portion of the Hersey family knew how to make stuff fun. I remember being at y'all's house one time, and I don't know if it was for maybe it was around Christmas time. And I remember Brandon doing a drum thing because he was in a drum line at the time.
Of course.
Alyssa sang a song.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't remember what you did, but like you guys,
I was probably in trouble. I was probably in the room. you guys, you go into that room, because your brother's about to play Little Drummer Boy out here, and Alyssa's about to sing it.
Right? Yeah.
That was our house.
You guys were like, there was like this almost hey, watch what our kids can do. Like your parents were so proud and they were so promoting. You know what I mean? My dad was like, "Get out of the way, son. We got stuff to do here." You know what I mean?
You know what my dad was doing? He was running the sound sweating.
Yeah. Exactly. But those were good times. And then of course Thanksgiving at Nanny's house was the best.
See, I've got to find. I know I have clips of that somewhere.
Yeah,
all in the road, throwing the football on the road.
Yeah, Uncle Daryl being crazy and all that kind of stuff. I remember there's a famous NFL football game where the Dolphins beat the Cowboys in Dallas the snow. And we were watching that together.
Dude, I was young. I was way young, but I can remember that.
That was fun, man.
100%.
That was fun. Yeah. But simultaneously, right, you and I have all those memories, but simultaneously at some of those very events, people were fighting or
100%.
Showing up with drama because I'm not calling names or whatever, but this person said that thing about that person and they know they're mad and they haven't been talking. And it's just like, oh, man.
And you're just trying to enjoy some turkey.
Right.
Or some ham. Right. So, all right. So what do you, all right, let's just say we're in that.
Yeah.
How do you handle that as just a disciple of Jesus?
Yeah.
Outside of anything, like how do you show up with people who have hurt you? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be lonely and isolated.
Right.
How do you show up and handle those moments?
Yeah, I would, again, I'm not some subject matter expert, of course, but like I would say that the Bible talks about, I'm pretty sure it's in Romans, the Bible talks about, there's a verse that says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. I really appreciate those very words because sometimes it's out of your hands.
That's a great
You
point.
might not be a person that's into the drama. You don't care. You could do without it, but the other person is, and they want to either stir it or that's just how they get their gratifications or whatever. So you can't always avoid some of the tensions or the drama, but as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And I'll say in my own, and I have definitely some examples of this in my life that I have learned, and I learned this the hard way, I guess, trial and error type stuff, but there's a few relationships in my life that I've learned there just has to be boundaries that only I know exist. So for example, with, certain people, it's like, look, I just don't engage in those conversations because I know those conversations generate drama or create friction or whatever. And so I will choose, I'm going to avoid that. I'm not bringing that up. If that comes up, I'm dipping out, politely or respectfully or whatever. And I think those are some ways, that's a way that you could do it, is just figuring out what creates the problem or what creates the drama. Now, as far as it depends on me, what can I do to keep the peace?
Well, and I think some of that too, like not to be over spiritualizing it, I think some of that you're going to have like true God's grace to do it.
No doubt.
Because there's probably some real, I'm sure I have, but people who are like, hey, I don't go around my family because of X, Y, Z, is usually not surface level stuff. Like this is real stuff that happened, real maybe abuse that happened, real hurt that happened, real whatever, betrayal, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's real stuff that goes on. And you can't just be like, well, just go in. And I love that as far as, but I think you're going to have grace.
Right.
I think meaning God's enabling power.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this on my own.
That's right.
Does that make sense? Like I'm not trying to be like over spiritualize it.
In our family too, this is a thing that it's well known in our household, and I mean, we have 2 adult kids now, so it's going to become known in their households. It's definitely a part of our staff culture a bit too, is that we kind of have these sort of 3 rules when it comes to somebody you're having trouble with or conflict with or, whatever. And one is that we always say, just assume the best. If you can just lead with the assumption that they probably don't have bad intentions, that can be hard to do, again, depending on the scenario, the history. But if we can go into a relational connection and assume the best, this is probably more in line with like conversations. It's like lead with questions.
You've told me this before. Go into that a little bit.
And then share your heart, because one of the mistakes that we make, and I might be a little bit off subject here, talking about going into a group of people at a family thing and there's a bad history with some people, right?
But I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful.
And I think so sometimes the best thing to do to keep kind of staying on that thematic thought of that verse from Romans, like live at peace with everyone. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just, hey, there's boundaries. I just don't cross them. And that's unfortunate, but I never go there. And that might include conversations with certain people. But if you can get to a place of conversation, the best thing we can do as followers of Christ, in my opinion, is the only things that go away if you ignore them are your teeth. Okay. So like, not your problems.
That's wisdom, ladies and gentlemen.
That's from one of my mentors, and it's one of my favorite things that he says. We can't ignore issues and expect it to go away. The idea that time heals all wounds is probably false. We can talk about that a little bit too.
I 100% agree with you on that. 100. If it festers, in my opinion,
for sure. And so if I'm going to engage in a conversation to try to heal something, if you and I have beef or had a bad encounter or whatever it is, I want to prayerfully go into that. And I probably can't overemphasize prayerfully.
Right. Yeah.
Man, if you're a follower of Christ, pray first. Ask the Lord, God, give me your heart, your thought, your words. The Spirit of God is within us, leads us. The Bible only says to us what he hears from the Father. And so it's like, if you're doing what the Spirit of God's leading you to do, you're going to be okay. So prayerfully going into a conversation, assuming the best about a person. So I would assume the best about Trevor, that, hey, if he did something that bothered me, I don't think it was his intention. I don't think he meant to. I actually think in all of our contexts that he does love me. And so I'm going to go in there with that purposeful mindset to assume the best about you. And then if I have an issue and we're having a conversation, then I just want to ask some questions to you. Because if I go in there with all my assumptions, I could be so off base,
right,
and not even know. So if I go in there with some questions like, hey, the other day when this thing happened, what was going on that day? What were you thinking or feeling, or whatever. And then if you, again, it could be that, man, I'll be honest with you, I was having a really bad day because I had some stuff going on and I was pretty stressed out about this, that, or the other, and, blah, blah, blah. And so I honestly don't even really remember the day. I wasn't all that focused. I was thinking about other things. All of a sudden, that is going to diffuse a lot, because now I'm not like, well, when you said that thing, you don't even remember.
Right.
Now, because I've asked you some questions, I know, dang, there's more going on. Well, that's going to kind of create a heart of compassion for me that, like, well, what is going on? Man, is there anything I can do for you? Let's say that it is a real conflict. Something was said or done. I'm going to ask questions, and those questions are either it's going to tell me either you didn't intend to,
right,
you didn't mean for it to go the way it went,
right,
or you did.
Right. Yeah.
And either way, at least now I know. And now that I have assumed the best about you, I've let you talk first. I've heard from you first. Now, hopefully, I have the floor to share my heart. Hey, I want to tell you how that affects me, or man, whatever it is. And when I've used that in my own life, it's been unbelievable how much of a difference it makes when I don't just go in there throwing hammers,
right?
Because I'm mad.
And I think you have to go in there too. What I kept thinking when you were saying that was, you're going to have to crucify your flesh some. Like, I know it's like Christmas time where we celebrate Jesus coming to us. This isn't Easter time, where we talk about sacrifice, but you're going to have to, because I'm sure if for me, I've had 1,000 arguments with this person already in my head of how this is going to go down and what they would say. And you said the assumption thing. Well, I'm playing connect the dots in my head. Well, you probably did this because of this, because of this. You're going to have to put all of that aside of like, am I really going in here to create peace. When you said that earlier about the peace thing, like as much as I can, but am I going into this to create peace? There's such a, man, that's a.
Yeah. And I would say this too, because the Bible says God resists the proud.
Right.
He gives grace to the humble. So and humility is hard. The Bible also, by the way, says humble yourself.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do.
Right.
But it's better to humble myself than to be humbled by life or by the Lord. But I also think too oftentimes, and everybody's wired differently. Some people are natural, they're fighters. Like they kind of want to, their natural instinct is to figuratively, I mean, maybe literally too, but more figuratively, like throw hands.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go. You want to battle? Let's battle.
Right.
And if that's your personality, that's a good thing to know so that you can temper that or work on that or pray about that or whatever. Because fighting is not always bad either. Sometimes there's stuff to fight for.
Right. Yeah.
There's things to defend or whatever. But some people are more passive or they're more naturally a peacemaker, whatever. Just knowing who you are, I think, is helpful. But too many people, in my opinion, I'm sure, without a doubt, I'm guilty as charged here. They go into maybe a difficult conversation or they go into a point of relational friction and they're just trying to win instead of trying to resolve.
100%.
It's like, who cares who's right? Can we just resolve the issue?
And I think that, again, that's a part of being a disciple of Christ. We have the ministry of reconciliation. I mean, that we have that.
Yeah.
But so often, I think our own hurts, which are real, our own frustrations, you probably don't want to be there. Let's go back to that holiday dinner or whatever. Maybe you don't even want to go. You don't even want to be. The last thing in your mind is the ministry of reconciliation.
Right.
You're like, I'm going to get that ham, eat it as fast as I can, and fake an injury so I can leave.
So I can go, right.
You know, or an emergency, like where the person's on the phone, like, what? What did you say? I'm on the way.
I'm on the way. I got to go, everybody.
And it's like, we can see your camera's on. Like, it's not a real call.
Right.
You know, or whatever it might be. I think you have to, that's such a good point. You have to go in there if like, hey, I want to redeem this.
Right.
And if, I don't know, I don't want to speak for like God or anything here, but if your heart's not that, I think you really need to be careful because you can end up doing way more damage to people. And it's cliche, but life is too short for that, man.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to get along with people, then at least don't hurt them on the way out. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how good of advice that is. So I'll leave that more to you.
I think you're spot on with that. You know, just trying to, I think you also have to think of everybody else around you too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you and Uncle George can be ticked at each other and not really care about, you know, whatever. But it's like, well, how is that affecting his wife, your kids, the grandma, you know,
the whole dynamic. Yeah.
The dynamic of all that. And I think that's true all the way around relationships, not just family.
Right,
I mean, I know in this context, we're talking about family. Right. But like any relational reality, it's like, it is always bigger than us. When God calls us to anything, it's bigger than me. It's not just for me or about me. It's always going to impact and be about others. And so I think there are just times where, you know, as followers of Christ, again, this is a thing of humility. You have to fall on the sword for the good of everybody else. Yeah. You know, and as pastors, we know that full well that there are, I'm certain you've experienced this before where, you know, it's like maybe you're in helping someone walk through some sort of restorative process and you know where their heart is, you know what action steps they're taking. You have the mud of their life is on you because you're in the trench with them and you start, you know, let's just say re-engaging them into serving or something like that. And then you got the self-righteous person on the third row that's ticked off because they don't know the details. And there's like a tension that and this isn't just exclusive to us as pastors. This is, again, I'm trying to broaden this out just as followers of Christ. That the tension is, well, if I just explain to the guy on the third row all the details, he'd go, oh, right. But I can't, because if I do that, I've sold out the confidence of the person that I'm actually trying to restore and minister to. The thing is, I'm actually trying to minister to you both. Right. So the best thing I can do for you both is just take the criticism. Yep. Like who loses? Well, I do. I take it right on the chin. Right. Go and throw the stones. It is what it is. I shouldn't say I say that, but we know that crap hurt. That stuff hurts. Oh my gosh. Like it hurts. Right. Because you're like, you don't know the whole story. That's right. You don't know. I mean, we could, my goodness, that's a whole talk in itself. Yeah. That would be a good conversation because that is just a real part, I think, again, of like picking up our crosses and in our, especially in our culture and our culture just is all about us and self-gratification. It's all about selfies and my story and my, influence and all that kind of stuff. And so everything about that says, we'll make it about you.
Yeah.
We'll then air it out there, post about it or whatever. And it's like,
send a text, I'll just send you a mean text.
Yeah. God. And what is that really doing? It's probably not doing much good, if any.
I don't know if it does any good, but I'm probably a little bit more cynical on that. Yeah. It's like, no, it's not doing any good. It's creating a massive rift and you can't move forward in a season where, my God, we should be the most loving people in the world.
Right.
Especially right now. There's already a sense of it's just different. So why not be people that are giving good, like something good? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I'm making sense with that, 100%. But it's, let's go back to the isolation thing.
Yeah.
Someone's isolated for whatever reason. I love how you said, not just because of a loss, which is very real. Maybe a divorce. I'll never forget the first Christmas after I was divorced.
Yeah.
Of how unique that was. And it changed my life forever.
Yeah.
I would never, ever see that the same. And it was a good Christmas. Like, it wasn't like it was a bad, but that internal thing, I was in a room with my family, but I felt alone too.
Yeah.
And because there was no one that I could, let me correct what I was going to say there. There's no one that I wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in isolation or loss, that's something you have to walk out yourself. You're going to have to want to. You're going to have to want to put yourself out there. Does that make sense?
Very much. Both sides of what you just described make sense. The side that like I'm not ready or I don't want to or I'm not. And I think that a season of that is probably okay, quite frankly.
Yeah.
When the wound is real fresh and tender, and sometimes it's like I don't really know what to do with it yet.
Right.
What's hard to even talk about that?
Yeah.
Even with someone you care about, trust, or loves you and all that.
Well, you're going to dig into stuff that still hurts like crazy.
Correct. I mean, I've got a couple of people in my very close world that are both going through some things right now that both of which are like, I need you to know this is where I am, but I also need you to know I'm not even really ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right. At least, but that alone might be a good step for the person there. Is just even, and again, this is every situation so sensitive and so unique. And so,
and there's no cookie cutter answer.
That's
100%
right.
agree.
That's right. So with that sort of disclaimer out front of that if you can at least let somebody that you trust in enough to say, I'm aware that I'm wounded, I'm hurting, I'm just not at a place where I'm ready to even talk about it, but please just know that that's where I'm there. Boom. You got somebody that's at least got your pulse on your situation right now.
Because you can't do that stuff alone either.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but you can't. There has to be connection.
100%. And then I think you've got to, at some point, and you alluded to this, that you have to go to a place where it's like, at some point I got to talk about it, whether I'm ready or not, or like it or not. I've got to get some people into this because I don't think that we're designed to do anything alone.
Right. God, no.
Like anything. And so, for example, several Sundays ago, there's a young lady in our church who has been in and out of our church for a number of years and has always struggled with some substance abuse issues, right? And it's very much a part of her story, and she's very open about that or whatever. And so I saw her, it's between services, we're having a conversation, and there she is, and I'm like, what's up, man? Good to see you, and she's like, which by the way, in our church, we're really intentional with the culture of, we don't say where you been stuff.
Right.
Oh, like, what a waste of breath, man.
Or is it your first time here?
Correct.
No, I've been coming 6 months, you jerk.
Right. Or, and I'm definitely sidetracking us right now, but it's just the thing that's a pet peeve of mine.
Oh God, I cannot wait to hear this.
Is when we do, someone hasn't been in a while and then they show back up and we trying to have fun. We're trying to make jokes, but it's like, hey, you want me to get you a connection card? Or you want a first time guest packet or whatever your church has, right? It's
oh man,
that is, I think, one of the worst things you can do. I just think, just smile, hug them and say, it's so good, glad that you're here. Because people know that they've been absent.
Yeah.
And most of them feel bad about it.
I know, it's like, son of a gun.
I didn't know I was missing.
I didn't know y'all were still meeting.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And usually I'll come back to the story I was telling here in a second, but usually when I'm like, hey, what's up? Good to see you. The first thing they want to say is, man, work's been so busy. And I love to just let them off that hook ASAP. Like, it's all, hey, it's life, bro. It's all good. I'm just glad you're here today.
Yeah. I'm not good. I don't know what to say. Because I'll say like, man, I don't care. And then it sounds like I don't care about where they've been. They're like, no, I've lost everyone. Like, well, I do care about that.
Right.
So I'm the worst. I need some coaching on that. Yeah, because I'll be like, I don't care about that crap. And they're like, oh. I'll say, no, I mean, I do.
I care about you a lot. Yeah.
I do care about you a lot.
Right. Yeah. So anyway.
So you're there with
I'm here with this lady, and she is saying how she's been sober 7 months.
Oh, come on.
And I'm like, way to go, man.
That
is awesome. Now, again, having walked with her for, years now because of our church. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm not like direct discipleship to her, but just knowing her story.
That was for all you jerks that wanted to email about something about Josh direct discipling.
Right. Like,
and that laugh.
It's coming. It's coming.
Assume the best, people.
Yeah. And
assume the best.
With that, I have a decision right there. Yeah. Because I can either take a self-righteous approach that's like, oh, you're sober a certain amount of time again. Or I can just get in her corner and say, way to go.
100%.
We're so proud of you, because our God is a God of another chance, not a second one, just another one and another one. His mercy endures forever.
Yep.
With that in mind, it's like our heart, is in our church is just to be like, that's awesome. Way to go. So proud of you. 7 months is a big deal.
Big deal.
Regardless if you did this before and then you did it before and you felt, who cares? Because again, I got my own issues. Well, then she says to me, hey, I'm going to start participating in this recovery life group that our church has. And I'm like, that is awesome. I think that's a super good idea. I think that's outstanding. And she's like, because, I got to have accountability and I've got to have people around me. And I just said, well, guess what? That makes you just like the rest of us.
Yep.
I may not have a substance abuse issue, but I have a sin issue in my heart because of my carnality. And you know what? I need to get free of that. I need the Holy Spirit. I need the Word of God, and I need accountability and God's people around me.
1,000%.
With all that said, when it comes to isolation, because I feel like we keep, that's our thing, and we keep deviating. It's like, at some point, you've got to have people that are around you and that are with you, and because it's necessary. It's risky because we hurt each other.
Yeah.
If people are
people. Everybody's messy.
Correct. But it's at some level, if you're in a place where you're like, look, the wounds are fresh. I don't know what to do with it. I would encourage you, get somebody that you can at least say, just know where I am. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to talk to me about it, but I'm just letting you know this is where I am in this. And then I would say at some point, at some level, and maybe you create a timeline in your own mind. Maybe you let the Spirit of God lead you in a timeline, but you say, hey, at some point I got to start talking because I can't ignore this. I would say, knowing you and knowing me, you and I are probably more the types that would say, I'll just get busy enough to not actually deal with it. And I'll just let it drift off into the peripheral.
And that mess never works.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Too much money in counseling.
Yeah.
For that right there.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd sit here and candidly admit that there are probably still issues from my life that I need to go deal with.
Yeah.
Still.
Well, man, that's everybody. And that's what you're saying with this young lady where you said, I could say this of trying again or doing this again. How many times can we say that with our own mess?
Exactly. Right.
And I think you could even tie that into, again, family issues, Christmas time, that stuff, it can get messy fast, really, really fast. But I think you got to have grace. I love what you kept coming back to, just the peace of it. Having, if as much as I can do to bring peace into the city. I mean, Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers.
Yes.
He wasn't like, psych.
Right.
He wasn't like, just for you special people who were borderline, I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, but borderline hippies and everything's great. And you got your CBD gummies in your jaw or whatever it might be. It wasn't just to them. He was blessed are the peacemakers.
Yes.
The ministry of reconciliation. And I think sometimes when you're saying this, I've never thought of it like this. You need to do that with your own soul if you're feeling isolated.
Yeah.
And you're feeling alone. Again, you might not have chose it. You may not have chose to lose someone you love.
Right.
Or how family dynamics happen.
Right.
Or a divorce or the job, whatever. You might not have had a big choice in that, but eventually you're going to have to make peace with it.
Yeah.
And do like something, a small step.
Yeah.
It doesn't have, you don't have to go from we say this all the time in our church. If it's a 10 scale, I don't need you to, if you're at a 1, I don't need you to be a 10 by the Lord's birthday.
Right.
I need you to be about a 1.5 or a 2.
Yeah, sure.
That's it.
Just forward progress.
Right. Just do
all of it's good.
Something.
Yeah.
Do something. All right. Out of time for this week. I love kind of just where we went there. Very practical stuff for families, practical stuff for loneliness or isolation, whatever it might be. Next week, I'm going to jump into family stuff with teenagers. That's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Because I know nothing on this. Like you said, you've got one teenager in the house, two adult kids.
Yeah.
So thank you.
A grandchild and one coming. So
so you're going to have a lot of wisdom on that, because that's one of the biggest things I hear is like, hey, help me with my teenager, because what I'm giving them for Christmas is death. So like whatever it might be.
Right.
So we'll jump into that next time. Thank you guys for watching as always, and we'll see you next week.